Some ways I saw God during this trip was when we were working at Feed My Starving Children and everybody was working effectively with one another.
I saw God in how everyone helped each other while we were at camp, like volunteering in the kitchen after meals to help clean up.
So whenever we all went outside to go put mulch on the playground, not just the grown-ups did it, all the adults, well, all the kids and adults did it.
Whenever we did the Feed My Starving Children, everyone was happy and they were trying to make as many as they could.
How I saw God was, I saw God in the community that the Hmong people and the Clifton Church of Christ people made in just the short amount of time that they were giving. When we first pulled up, it was kind of people said hi to who they knew and things like that. But as we went to the camp and as we, intermixed and everything, there was just a great community that was created between the Church of Christ kids and families and the Hmong families.
I saw God in Feed My Starving Children, where they figured out a way during COVID to still pack food for the children.
I saw God pulling us together when we were helping out in the dining hall or playing games. No one was complaining and it made the whole trip so much more enjoyable.
I saw God through Feed My Starving Children. It really showed through the volunteers, seeing how everyone was so eager and happy to help package foods that would go to starving children.
So I saw God through the youth students here from Clifton and Seth. It was really cool. The week that we were there, we hosted a VBS for the Hmong kids while we were at camp. And that was just like a really cool experience to see our kids interact with the Hmong kids. Just like the way that they meshed, the way that they worked well with each other. It was just a really powerful thing to see how God just touched the hearts of those little kids and just to see their eyes light up when we were teaching them Bible lessons was just so cool. And just to see Seth dance with them in jazzercise, just seeing the joy that they had and just seeing them goof off and be silly, it was just a really sweet moment.
I saw God through the little kids, how they were shy at first. And at the end of the weekend at camp, they loved playing with me.
Probably the flight there and back.
What was your favorite part of the flight?
Taking off.
Feed My Starving Children. At Feed My Starving Children, there were still COVID rules, but it didn't affect the process too greatly. On the other hand, we were lucky enough to be a part of a pilot program where there could be twice the amount of meals than before in each packet. Instead of packing the main grain, like rice, they would buy it at the country that they were delivering the packets to, therefore supporting local organizations and farmers in that country. We packed for 1 hour straight, but to me it felt like 15 minutes. We were so invested in our goal of getting as much packets filled as possible, we weren't really focused on anything else.
My favorite part of the trip was probably the flight there and camp.
So what was your favorite part of the flight?
The turbulence.
My favorite thing would have to be spending time with little kids.
My favorite part of the mission trip by far was meeting new friends at the camp and playing games with the little kids.
When we went paddle boating and Seth splashed us out with water and we got soaked.
So my favorite part of the trip kind of was unexpected. It was not planned. The power went out, which maybe you might think that does not sound like fun, but it was actually a really cool experience because all the girls, the Hmong teens and our teen girls, we were all staying in a cabin together. And so when the power went out, we were all just hanging out in the cabin. We were playing games, listening to music. And so that was just a really fun experience for me to connect with our youth girls because this was the first week that I had been here in Clifton. And so that was just a really sweet moment for me because I got to just enjoy spending time with them and getting to know them a little bit better.
My favorite part of the trip was when we were at Flaming Pine Youth Camp. I really liked watching over the kids and how excited they were to learn new things through Bible study and just going about it in different and exciting ways.
My favorite part was that we got to go out on the lake and paddle a boat because it's my first time ever.
My favorite part of the trip, I would say my favorite part of the trip was during our VBSs, we did jazzercise. And if you don't know what that is, that's when you might get up in the mornings and you dance for an exercise. Well, we did that with the kids, and I got to get up and just improvise the whole thing and dance and boogie and all that stuff. And it was just so much fun because all the kids would just try to do it with me, but that was my favorite and fun thing.
So I was hanging out with the Hmong children most of the time. And so at the end of the week, when we were about to leave the food truck park, one of the kids asked me to come live with her, and her mom said, yes, we can use more Samantha time.
About how to be an active instead of a passive person. A passive is like, not like you hear it but you don't do it or anything. Or an active is hearing about it and then doing it.
I learned we each have a very important role to play. Even if it's small, it still matters.
You can make friends everywhere you go.
That God flows through everyone, even if they're coming from a different religion.
I learned that God worked through people in different ways.
I learned that you can be friends with anyone. I made so much friends with these little kids and just new people to have fun with.
To not walk by sight, but walk by faith.
The big thing that I learned was trusting God, like Seth said. But another thing that I learned was during one of our first lessons with all of the Hmong adults and the Hmong children, Eric was talking about heaven and what that would look like and what we were most excited about. And the biggest thing I took away was how heaven is going to just be the most perfect place, and how this world that he created, he originally had intended it to be a specific way. And then in the garden, it had grown corrupt. And so we fell apart and we didn't get to see the perfection that he intended. And so one thing that I said was I was just looking forward to heaven being the perfect, like what God intended, because what God intends is the best. And so just being able to see the richness and the fullness of God is something that I thought was really cool. And so that was just one thing that I had never thought about. And so that was one big thing that I learned on the Minnesota mission trip.
In Minnesota, Steve Countryman talked to us about passive and active Christians. Passive being, don't really care enough to put forth an effort to help these people. And active being, oh, okay, these people need help. What can I do to help them?
Something I learned was, one of our VBS topics was trust God. That was our whole kind of thing over VBS. And I guess saying it enough times, it really kind of made me think a little bit more about it. And I kind of looked at it as in any situation you're put in life, I feel like you can always find joy, the joy that comes from the Lord, because a lot of these Hmong people were put into difficult situations that just really you could really just be upset about the situation you're in, but they chose not to. They chose to find joy in the small groups that they go to in the church that they're a part of. So I really saw God, and I really learned that out of any situation you can always find God in it, and you can always see joy in the Lord.